Hey everyone, how you doing? Impromptu. I'm just going to bring up my monitor here. Yeah, it's going to decide to work. Look at that. I grew up on a farm, and I'm not saying in all cases, but it was interesting how often people who had they lived on the farm all their life, they were farmers all their life, that type of thing. And they decided to, it was time. They couldn't or whatever farm anymore. So then they decided to sell the place and move into town. And they were farming. They were doing up early and late and all that kind of stuff. Then they retired, quote unquote, took it easy, moved into town. Then they got sick and old and died. Now, I'm not saying that happens, of course, in every case, but it's interesting how often it does. The same thing applies to people that have been in the same job. And this is a job that they got a lot of value out of. They loved what they did. They got their identity in many respects out of their job. Then they retire, not because they want to, usually because they have to. And they've been perfectly healthy and working hard. They retire because they have to, and then they get old and die. I remember reading more than one source of, and in this case, I think it was nuns, actually, and they lived forever, sort of thing, into their 80s, into their 90s, and they were healthy and they were busy and they were just, things were happening. So what can we learn from all this? Well, to me, what I take away from this is we all need a purpose. And the reason the nuns lived as long as they did, and that's just one example. There was a chiropractor. There's a chiropractor in Red Deer, Alberta, which is where I'm at. Dr. Lyle Smith was his name. He's gone now, left his body, but he'd been a chiropractor for I don't know how many decades. He worked, I'm really confident when I say 7 days a week, long hours. He didn't kind of have the add-on billing for that. So essentially for the longest time, it was like free, or then I think it was like $5. He had this little clinic downstairs in this dingy little spot. And of course, people lined up to go see him. And as far as I know, he lived perfectly healthy and he was working right up until the time he left. Why? Because he had a purpose. There was a purpose. He was there. It wasn't just for a business, and it wasn't just to make money, because, man, he owned half of downtown Red Deer, sort of thing. But he had a purpose. The nuns had a purpose. So why did the farmers and the people that had the job forever, what happened to them? They didn't have a purpose anymore. Or at least they didn't think they did. This won't be long. At times lately, not even so much lately, that's how I felt. Like I had a purpose. I really, really did. I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was who I was. And then that purpose was gone. Or at least the ability to fulfill it was gone. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not that they lose their purpose. It's just they had one, and now they didn't have the ability to fulfill it. So maybe it's not that they lost it. In a way, if they lost it, it might have been better in a weird kind of way. Because that yearning inside them wouldn't be there to fulfill it, but it's a yearning they couldn't fulfill. But the end to this sort of impromptu broadcast is every one of us has a purpose. And if you don't feel you have the ability to fulfill it right now, or maybe you don't know what your purpose is, I guess just to know that you have one, at least for now, has to be enough. It's definitely not optimal, I can tell you that. but to just know that you do have a purpose and there is a reason for you to be here. The reason that's bigger than you, right? Maybe, at least for now, that has to be enough. It's not what we would choose, but for now, it has to be enough. But we all have one. Whether you know what it is and feel you can't fulfill it right now, whether you're not sure what it is, or if you have one, know that you do. And here's the son of a gun about a purpose, is you can't outrun it. You can't, it's like a shadow, right? On a sunny day. You can't outrun it. You can't, I guess, unless you hide in the shade, I suppose. But it's still there. You just can't see it, right? But it's sort of a life sentence, is you're always going to have that purpose. And so there's no point in trying to forget it if you know what it is, because that doesn't work. If you don't know what it is, sort of trying to look for it, that doesn't seem to work either. I think our purpose and the fulfillment of it in many ways is beyond our control. At least it seems that way, for me anyway. And so then our job is to do our best to kind of balance ourselves, ground ourselves into the choice to believe that we all have a purpose. And at least for now, maybe that has to be enough. But we all do. And there's a reason for all of us to be here that's bigger than us. That was it, guys. It just popped into my awareness, and it was quite strong. So I thought I would share those thoughts. All right, share. We're all in this together. See you on the web.